Welcome to another episode of the Phase Knowledge Podcast. And today we are talking about first I want to say Merry Christmas to all of those. Happy holidays to everyone as well. Today we are talking about to be different. Hello, to want different, you have to be different. And so we're talking about that right now. Let me go ahead and put the phone on Do Not Disturb. One thing that I've discovered today or in the last couple of months or days is that really, if you want to be different, you have to be willing to do something differently. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me. Let me know in the comments if you can see and hear me good, and make sure you are in tune with the conversation. I'm your host. I'm Terryl Humphrey. I'm the host of the Phase Knowledge Podcast. And today we're going to talk about if you want different, you have to be different. Okay. If you want different, you gotta be different. Let me make sure my screen is right and make sure, because yesterday I had some technical difficulties. If you want different, be different. If you want different, be different. And before we get started, I do want to say happy holidays to everyone that's out there. One thing that's really important is that you spend time with your family. You spend time relaxing, decompressing, and just enjoying the day. I wanted to come up on here and really talk about the importance of being different. You see, everyone wants the price. Everyone would like to be successful, yet everyone is not willing to pay the price to be successful. And when I give you a prime example, when I was in high school, I was in the ninth. Appreciate y'all for joining in. Let me know in the comments if y'all can hear me. When I was in high school, ninth and 10th grade, I wanted to play football, and as I was on a football team, I wasn't that good. And even though I wasn't that good, I kept showing up to practice, kept going up to different days, and just being present. What I recognized during that time is that, one, I had to be okay with learning the game. Two, I had to be okay with being bad. Three, I had to learn how to learn the game. And so as I was watching people who were higher, or who was in a higher grade, who was in a higher grade than me, I started to see their work ethic, their beliefs, what they believe in, what they're doing, how they're acting, how they're responding. And I started to recognize that there's something different about them. It's something different about them, and it's not the fact that them being different is discouraging. It's actually them being different gave me the confidence that it's okay for me to be different. If you want to be different, you have to become different. And what's different? Different is doing things that a lot of people would never do. For instance, today is Christmas Day. Today is Christmas Day. And a lot of people won't even go live. A lot of people won't even post their day. A lot of people won't even talk about the moment. But see, I'm doing something different. I'm not just talking about being different. I'm being the example of becoming different. You see, one thing that I had to recognize is that it's not just good to talk about being different. You have to show what you are talking about. You have to show what you are speaking. You have to show the importance of being different. So if you want to be different, you have to be okay with becoming different. Because there's a lot of people like you, yet there's no one like you. Hold on. There's a lot of people doing the same exact thing, but a lot of people that stand out are the ones who doing different things. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of being different. So for those of you that's joining on TikTok, I'm writing on the board on Instagram, Facebook, not Instagram, but YouTube, Twitter, X, all those different things. So we're talking about the importance of becoming different. And so the first point I want to talk about is learn different. Learn different. In other words, the way you learn matters. The way I learn is that I ask a lot of different questions. I watch videos, I listen to audiobooks, I go to different places, go to different events, go to different conferences, have different conversations. I'm constantly trying to find a way to learn because there's something that I do not know. It's not the fact that I would like to know everything. I can't know everything, but I can learn something new every single day. And when I started to position myself differently, I started to understand it was like, wait, If you want to be different, you have to start doing things differently. And that involves with me is learning how to be different. And when I started to educate myself and go to different places and ask different questions, I started to recognize, I was like, wait, hold on. Being different is cool. Being different is not lame. Being different is not like it's not bad. What it does is that it gives you an advantage. When you start to learn how to be different, learn different, is that you have to learn your style. Your style helps you discover how you are putting yourself out there. And so what does this have to do with the business that I'm in the process of growing with, of the media business? To learn different, you have to be different. So there's a lot of media companies out there, and a lot of people that's doing media in the world of content creation or in the world of podcasts. And so for me to be different, I have to look at what everyone else is doing and find a way to be different. Prime example, with the Failures Knowledge podcast, we talk a lot about turning turning setbacks into success. And we talk about the journey of failure, the journey of the lessons, and the journey of success. You just didn't wake up successful. You had to go through a journey to discover who you're becoming. As you discover that, you start to see what's different about you. Just because there's over 500,000 podcasts out there, that doesn't mean I have to be just like 5 million different podcasters. This is called in business. This is called your unique selling proposition. Hold on. So when you learn your style, this right here, your style is your unique selling proposition. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and the guest that I had, he was talking about the unique selling proposition. And I told him a story. I was like, well, when I was in class one day, a lot of people say that you have to be different from everyone that's doing business. And then I proceed to ask, well, I'm like, how can you be different if everyone is in business? How can you be different if you don't know how to become different? And so I start asking questions. So I asked my professor, I was like, well, you have to understand your competitive advantage. In other words, your unique selling proposition. What is your competitive advantage? Like, what does that even mean? Your competitive advantage is what makes you stand out. Your competitive advantage is what makes you different. Your competitive advantage is what people say that the reason why they work with you. And so I'm like, well, how do you answer that? Like, I'm not sure how to answer that. How do you answer that? I literally asked my professor that. How do you answer that? And he proceeded to say, well, you're working with me. And since you're working with me, I have X amount of experience. I've worked with X amount of clients. I work with similar clients just like you. But it's recognizing that you're working with me because of the past experience, because of the difference, because of what I bring to the table. In business, when you start to learn that you are different from your competitors, rather when you're different from other people or other businesses, you start to recognize why you are different. And when I started to recognize why I'm different, the style that I was learning, the style that I was building, the style that I was establishing, it really helped me learn more about the competitive advantage that I have. The unique selling proposition, in other words, what makes me stand out, what makes me different is the fact that whenever someone come onto the podcast, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel understood. Not only do they feel seen, heard, and understood, I'm actually engaged with the conversation. I'm actually engaged with the entrepreneur. I'm actually engaged with their story. You see, when you gain the exposure for your business, people have to be willing to learn about your story. Exposure doesn't mean that you have to be everywhere. What it means is that you have to be at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. Your unique selling proposition, in other words, what makes you different is what's going to help you stand out. I remember I went to a networking event a couple of weeks ago. And during this networking event, I went there. This is me, my wife and I. We went there. I'm gonna put here D. Humphreys. R-E-Y. All right. So we went there, and I always carry my bag here. My bag here has a lot of camera equipment there. And I always carry it with me so that way if I need my camera, I can have it right on the spot with me. And so we have the camera right here. This is the camera tripod. I'm going to say this is the camera. With the camera, it makes me different automatically. Why? Because a lot of people that go to networking events do not have any type of camera. And so when you're in business, you have to find a way to make you stand out. You have to find a way to make you different. You have to find a way that will discover your unique selling proposition. It's not the fact the camera makes a difference. It's more so since I have this camera, the camera that I have is drawing attention. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a videographer. I'm a media business helping leaders gain more exposure through share their story, and attract the right customers. For me to talk about that to a lot of business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs, well, I have to go to them and I have to show them what makes me different. What makes me different makes me unique, and what makes me unique makes me special, because there's somebody that needs the exposure. There's somebody that's struggling to build their presence up, and not only are they building their presence up, there's something that comes from that. What comes from that is that you're understanding how to be different. If you want to be different, if you want different, you have to become different. Wait, hold on. If you want different, be different. That's the title. I had to remember what the title was. If you want different, be different. Everyone that's doing the same exact thing is not sticking out. Like, prime example, when I was in the Marine Corps, everyone who's E1, E2, E1, E2 are the ranks, all the way up to E4. What makes you different from the person right next to you, even though you're the same Marine doing the same job and things of that nature? If you was to ask me that question here today, I'll be hesitant to answer it, because how do you know what makes you different? How do you know what's different? How do you know that different actually works? You see, what worked for me is that I was being myself. What worked for me is that I was understanding who I was becoming. It's so challenging to be yourself. It's even more difficult to be okay with becoming who you would like to be. Hold on. The challenges that come from being different is that many times you have to be the first to change. You have to be the first to evolve. You have to be the first to improve. So when we went to this networking event and we had the camera, there was a lot of people there. Hold on. Let's just say this is the guest. This is guest. Guest. This is guest. And for those of you who's on TikTok, if you want to watch the visuals, go to my YouTube channel at The Phase Knowledge Podcast or The Phase Knowledge and watch more about that. And so these are the guests. And when I had the camera and I was walking around, one, this is a form of being different. Two, people were watching. I'm going to put watching. People were watching. In other words, people were looking. People were turning. And when I started to see that I have something that was different, me being at the networking event became different because I'm the one that's being different. Hold on. Why is that important? Because if you're in business, if you have a business for yourself, doing the same thing just like any other business does not make you stand out. And I had to learn that over a long period of time, over half a decade, is that even though I would like to be in business, even though I'm in business, how can this business I'm trying to build and grow and establish help position me differently? Well, the only way it helps position you differently if you understand the difference that you are becoming. And it helped me because I stopped overthinking the process. I stopped overthinking the journey. I discovered that not only am I in business, in the media business, helping leaders gain more exposure, share their story, and attract the right customers, I'm in a business where attention is so important. Attention, if you don't have nobody attention, how can you be different? When I played high school football, I was different because I stuck out. I was different because I had talent. I was different because I worked hard. And just because I worked hard, that doesn't mean something was going to come from it. What it does mean is that I put every ounce of effort into the hard work, and eventually the results came. Eventually, the success came. Eventually, when I started to walk the hallways, people was like, man, good game. Good game, Hump, like you really played a good game. And at the time, I didn't know it was called being different. I just thought it was called doing your best. So that's another thing I want to talk about is that when you're different, let me make sure I got it right. When you're different, in my world, in my opinion, different equals doing your best. If your best is not acknowledged, your best will be wasted. To be different, to understand your unique selling proposition, what makes you different from other people, other companies, other businesses. What makes you different makes you special. And just because it makes you special, it helps you be remembered. It helps you be remembered because people are coming to you for a particular reason. I remember when I was in the service and I started to cut hair. And when I had the idea that I wanted to cut hair and go out and go get people to cut their hair, I had to first have the idea. Then when I had the idea, I go out and share it like, hey, like I'm thinking about cutting hair. If you ever need a barber, I'm your guy. Here's the thing. There was another Marine who was actually pretty good at cutting hair. What made him different was that he can actually cut hair. Like I'm talking about, I wasn't that good. I was nowhere near because I was just starting out. However, what he did with them clippers was crazy. Like it was actually pretty good. So I'm like, all right, cool. How can I be different from that? He know how to fade, he know how to cut, and he know how to make someone look presentable. Me, on the other hand, I just got an idea. I'm like, well, if I got this idea, I'm going to cut hair. Well, let's just see how far it goes. I started to cut hair. And the hair that I was cutting was not that good. I'm talking about at the end, like when I get done cutting people's hair, I'm like, man, where's the fade at? But I spent 2.5 hours trying to cut someone's hair. And me trying to cut their hair, it looked like I didn't even cut their hair. It looked like I didn't even cut their hair because their hair was messed up. Why am I sharing this with you? The difference that I had from the person that was already good at cutting hair and what I was different at was really when people come here, you're gonna feel seen, heard, and valued. That's about the only thing that I can offer. As far as your haircut being presentable, I don't know about that just yet. I have to get the reps. I have to get the practice. I have to get the skill developed. But what it taught me is that people kept coming back because they felt seen, valued, and heard. Did I say heard? Seen, valued, and respected. No, not seen, value, and I think heard. Seen, value, and heard. I think that's it. Seen, value, and heard. And so when people start to feel seen, valued, and heard, it really positioned me differently. But I didn't know I was being positioned differently. I'm like, man, I'm going to keep trying to do this. I'm going to keep trying to put myself out there. And I did. I did for like a month. I got a lot of people and I cut a lot of heads. Spent a lot of time trying to learn. And what I discovered there was that maybe I was doing the wrong thing. Maybe I just don't have enough skill, time, and development for me to cut other people's hair because other people's heads was not looking good. I remember this one time when I was cutting somebody's hair. Appreciate y'all for joining in on TikTok Live. Appreciate y'all for joining in. So I remember this one dude I was cutting, like I literally just got done cutting his hair. Hold on. Not got done cutting his hair, but I was about to like start the whole process. Might as well have been done. Didn't look no difference. And so here's the head, right? And let's just say, hold on. This is the head. I don't know how to draw it. Anywho, I digress. I was about to show the haircut that I had cut. But imagine this. Someone sit down on the chair and you do the guideline. The guideline is like the line that's there so you can know how far to cut up, how far to fade, and so on and so forth. As I proceed to do the line, but for the whole head, we got called to the lobby, or we got called to the library or something like that. And he went down there. When he went down there, it literally looked like somebody put a hat on him and just cut around it, and it was no fade. It did not look good. It was not cut. It wasn't even done. Here's the thing from that. Here's the greatest lesson that I learned from that. To be different, you have to be willing to do different. Hold on, that's not the title. That's not the title. Hold on. Let me make sure. To want different. Yes. Hold on. Okay, if you want different, be different. That's the title. If you want different, be different. But you have to understand, to be different takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of practice and skills. But when you become different, people start to see your difference before you recognize how different you're becoming. You see, when you are in business and you're trying to discover your competitive advantage and or your what makes you different, you have to understand that there's a process that you are going through. And as you are going through this process, you are learning more about yourself. You are developing the skills, you are developing the craft, you are developing the information, but you can't go from point A to point B if you haven't started at point A. Why? Because to be different, you have to be willing to do different. If you want different, be different, but to be different, you have to start becoming different. Being different, there's a price to pay, because there's some things that you're not going to know. There's some things that you're not going to understand. There's some things that's going to be overwhelming. Yet, even though you start trying to figure it out, you're positioning yourself differently. As you position yourself differently, you start to see the business that you're creating. You start to see the business that you're actually in. You start to recognize that the business that you're in the business that requires attention. Exposure for your business make a difference, but to get the difference, you have to become different. Why? Because exposure of doing the same thing like any other businesses will make you the same. And so when I started to recognize that since I'm in business, well, it's not just about being in business, understanding the type of business that I'm in. I'm in the media business. I'm in the media space where there's a lot of people, a lot of competition that's out there. And that's absolutely fine. And just because I've been doing it half a decade, I'm still at the beginner level. So what makes me different? What makes me different is that we make people feel seen, valued, and heard. And when people are seen, valued, and heard, they start to see the difference that we are creating. You see, the first point that we are talking about is really learning different, or learning your style of different, because you can't be like everyone else if you don't understand who you're becoming, or what makes you different, or what makes you valuable. You see, when we help leaders gain more exposure, share their story, and attract the right customers, we're helping them gain more exposure for their business. And I started to recognize, I said, oh, that's different. That's different because a lot of people's language is not that simple. A lot of people ain't even talking to their customers. A lot of people ain't getting the feedback. A lot of people ain't even acting on the feedback. At least I think they not. But I am, because I'm focused on providing the best service that I can ever provide for the customers, for the leaders who are struggling to gain exposure for their business. And so the next point that I want to cover, yesterday we talked about readjustment, but for this one, when you learn your style, you have to be willing to go out and try this style. No. When you learn your style, you have to learn your style. You have to act on your style. No. Instead of act on your style, learn your style. Identify your different. That's what that is. Identify. That's what we're going to talk about. You're different. If you want different, be different. But for you to become different, you have to understand that there's a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of business owners just like you. And what makes you different? What makes you special? What makes you memorable? And I started to recognize, I'm like, all right, cool. So there's a lot of people, there's big streamers, big podcasters, big people with big platforms. I'm like, well, my platform isn't that big yet. But at some point, everyone has to start at point A and then work their A to point B, so on and so forth. And so I started to recognize, I'm like, well, the people that I've had on my podcast, I've learned so much. I've learned a lot. In addition to that, I started to understand, even though I've learned a lot, how can I implement the information that I have received? And so I start going to different places and learning about business and learning the language of business and how to do business, how to conduct business. And so many things are changing about the language, about the information that I have received. But to be different, I have to be willing to become different. So to becoming different, I have to be willing to gain the knowledge of different. The knowledge of different might seem like a foreign language. In other words, if I'm trying to learn Spanish and I haven't started with understanding the basics of it, me trying to learn Spanish will be overwhelming because I don't know anything about Spanish. Whereas if I take a step at a time and learn the language and learn the basics, and eventually I would get the hang of it. Eventually I would know how to speak Spanish. Eventually I would understand how to be different. And so I give you a prime example. When I was learning Spanish, I went on an app and I started to learn Spanish. I started to practice Spanish. I started to understand Spanish. And it gave me the confidence or to be certain of the thing that I was learning or the skill that I was developing or the different that I was creating for myself. The difference that I was creating was me learning a second language. Now, I wasn't consistent with it. On the contrary, I still was able to see the changes. I still was able to see the development. I still was able to learn. If you want to be different, become different. The information that I'm learning has to be different than the information that I already know. Because if I want different, I have to be different. So I have to get around different people. If I want different, I have to be different. So I have to learn new information. If I want different, I have to be different. And I have to go and ask different questions. You see, when you're in business, the business that you're in is understanding your customers. Any businesses out there has customers that they need to understand. It has customers that they need to communicate with, has customers that they need to serve. But if you're not serving your customers, if you're not speaking to your customers, if you're not making a difference for your customers is going to go to the next person. And so I started to recognize like something different. I was like, well, if I want to be different, how can I be different? I'm not just building a media business. I'm learning how to be different by communicating with my customers or my clients or my future audience in a language that's simple. By showing up consistently, by doing the different work. If I want to be different, I have to be willing to become different. You do that by learning new information. You do that by presenting yourself different. You do that in a way where a lot of people are going to say, how did you do it? How did you start your business? How did you get your first customer? How did you get your second customer? At this point now, I updated my business so many different times, and I have to update it again for like the fifth time because there's so many different things that I have to adjust to, that I have to be different to. It wasn't the fact that the business that I was doing at first was helping leaders launch their podcast with confidence. I started to understand that alone was challenging itself because people, leaders, entrepreneurs, or small business owners already have a product. They already have their business. But the thing about that product and or business is that a lot of people don't know about it. And so what a lot of people want to start their podcast, but as they want to start their podcast, they get to start and then they recognize, well, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that goes into your podcast. So 90% of podcasters stop podcasting after episode number three. Why? Because it's hard. Why? Because it's challenging. Why? Because it takes a lot of work. Today is Christmas and I'm up here working because I want to be different. And so when I change and as I'm changing my business model, I'm updating it. As I'm updating it, well, now I have to recognize, what am I offering? Okay. If I'm offering exposure, if I'm offering to help leaders gain exposure, share their story and attract the right customers, my messaging needs to be different. I need to be doing something different. I can't be doing the same exact thing that everyone else is doing. How can I be different to understand the problems of my customers or my future customers? How can I position myself differently? How can I be different? How can I solve the problem differently? I learned to be different. I have to become different. So it taught me that even though I want to be different, there's some things that I have to identify. What is the different that I'm creating? So the difference that make me different, okay, is that we help leaders feel valued, seen, and heard. In other words, we help leaders promote their business without shame, learn the backstory. Number 2, learn their backstory. And number 3, they feel heard. The connection, they are able to connect with the audience. They are connecting with the audience. Why is this critical? Why is this important? Because to be different, you have to understand how you are different. And I just recognized how I'm different of like today or yesterday ago. I was like, oh, I got the business now. I got the structure now. I got the understanding of what I need to do to help others share their story. To gain more exposure, share their story, and attract the right customers. But it took me so long to get to this point because I didn't know what point I was trying to get to. Yes, I'm trying to do the business. Yes, I'm trying to figure it out. So I go to different masterminds, different events, different places just to learn about the business, just to learn about a business or any business I'm trying to develop. And what it helped me do is it helped me understand how to be different. How do you become different if you don't know how to be different? When I start learning different information, when I start asking different questions, when I start doing business differently, I started to see the shifts. I started to see the change. And when I identified my different came from me doing it consistently and having so many different people on the Phase Knowledge podcast to not only learn about their story, learn about their failure and how they turned their setback into success, but really, what are you really promoting? Before you start promoting your business, what's the story of you getting to this business? Everyone has a story, yet everyone's not sharing their story because the exposure comes from you sharing your story. Let me know in the comments if you with me. So if you want different, you have to be different. And in order for you to become different, you have to do different things. You have to learn differently. You have to go to different places. You have to go to different environments. And when you start to see the results from you being different, growth naturally happens. We help leaders gain exposure, share their story, and attract the right customers. Before this point, before today, I was trying to figure out how and what problem was I able to solve. And I'm thinking it's about helping leaders launch their podcast with confidence. But in reality, you have to learn an entire new skill when you're podcasting. You have to learn how to not only do the podcast episode, not only edit the episode, not only publish the episode, but you got to do it on a consistent basis. But what if they already over here trying to grow this one business and they don't have the time to grow this other business? So now it's up to me to become different to solve the problem that a lot of business owners are struggling with. And so when I start gaining different information and reading different sources and learning about business, I go to different places. I'm just looking like, man, this is a great product. This is a great business. How come a lot of people don't know a lot about this business? And it hit me because I kept asking the same question. Why don't a lot of people know about this business? Why don't a lot of people know about this? Why don't a lot of people know about that? I start asking different questions, and the different answers that I received came based off the different questions that I was asking. Hold on. Maybe that went over somebody's head. Maybe that went over somebody's head, okay? Excuse me. The reason why being different helps you stand out more Because when you're being different, when you're becoming different, people see you differently. People start to say, man, they really valued what I was saying. They really heard me. They really made me feel seen. When people establish your different becomes your marketing. Hold on. Why? Because yesterday we talked about marketing and really putting yourself out there and understanding the process of you putting yourself out there consistently. When you understand how to be different, your different is naturally communicated with other people. I'm learning about the word of mouth thing and how important that really is, and how important like word of mouth actually consists of. It's not the fact that you're not marketing yourself, but word of mouth, which in other words, referrals, ERALS, or people telling other people about your business. I'm just say that people telling, or I'm put talking, people talking about your business. People talking about your business. About your business. All this come from being different. If you want different, be different. But to become different, you have to do something differently. Why? Because when you become different, people start to pay attention to the difference that you are creating. People don't like the same thing over and over and over again, but they like the difference that someone is able to identify and focus on that difference. Last point I want to hit on. So to recap, so far we talked about a couple of things. First, you have to learn different. You have to be able to learn your style of learning different. And then the next thing that we talk about is identify your different. What makes you different is what separates you from everyone else. Until you recognize what makes you different, you're gonna be just like everyone else. And lastly, what I want to talk about is that for the last thing that we're gonna cover is that you have to feed back. Seek feedback. And you have to seek feedback because you don't know everything yet. When people are communicating with you, they can tell you what you haven't recognized. Hold on, let me go more in depth with it. All right. RESER. All right, there we go. You have to, for the last one, you have to seek feedback. There's a lot of people who's talking about different things. And whenever I go, let's just say I'm doing a podcast. I did a podcast. Oh, I didn't do a podcast today. But if I was to do a podcast today, we would do the podcast. And then right after the podcast, I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to get a testimony. I'm going to ask for a testimony. Why? Because if you just experience something, why can't I ask? Just like when I go to Walmart and I swipe my card to pay, or I insert my card to pay, there's what is it called? There's a mini survey. There's a mini survey that says hold on, these are stars. On top it say, how did we do? And it's supposed to be 5 stars. There we go. 5 stars. How did we do? They are seeking feedback. Why? Because they want to understand how their service was, how their business was, how people in Walmart are actually moving around, how they're conducting with the customers. And many times people don't recognize the importance of feedback. If you're not receiving feedback, how can you continue to be different? And when as much feedback as I get, a lot of people be like, you're trying to validate yourself. I'm not validating anything. I don't need validation. What I do need is feedback to help me improve. As you are being different, feedback helps you improve, because some people are going to communicate with you based off the difference that you have created. As you are creating the difference, the feedback that you are receiving will tell you if it's working or if it's not working. But if it's not working, this is why it's not working, based off what they're saying. There's a book called what is it called? What is it called? What is it called? What is it called? The Startup Owner's Manual. And he talk a lot about adjusting your business model, adjusting your plan, and just really going out there to speak to your customers to get the feedback. And I didn't recognize while being in business. Actually, I also learned this in Action Zone as well, but to go out and speak to your customers. And it's just really understanding, well, as you are going to seek feedback, watch this, you're learning the language that your customer use based off the information that you're asking for. Feedback helps you communicate in the language that your future customers understand because you're going directly to them. If I want to be different, if I want to help leaders or business owners gain more exposure, share their story, and attract the right customers, I need to be going out to them to be asking them, what is your struggle when it comes to exposure? What have you been trying to gain more customers or gain more attention for your business? What has worked? What has not worked? Feedback helps you understand the problems that your customers are currently facing. Why? Because if you don't understand the problems that you're solving, how can you be different? So when you seek feedback, the feedback that you're receiving is something to improve. Hold on. To improve, you're different. I'm gonna put difference. To improve your difference. If your difference is not improved, the same difference that you're trying to make will not be effective because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again with no changes, no adjustments, with no improvement. Feedback helps you improve because people are going to tell you if it's working or if it's not working, and here's why it's not working and they're working. To be different, you have to be okay with feedback. I had to understand that feedback helps my business. Feedback is not bad. It's not like they're talking negative about the business I'm trying to grow and build and establish. Feedback helps me improve, and feedback is something that I need as a business owner to improve on a daily basis. I'm not going to wait for the feedback to come to me. I'm going to go and seek the feedback. As you are a leader, a business owner, and an entrepreneur, you have to go and seek the feedback, because when you go seek the feedback, people start to give you feedback. People start to give you feedback because you're the one that's asking for the feedback. You see, if you want different, be different. But to become different, you have to do something differently. And so when I started to understand, I had to shift my business model again and change what I'm doing within my business. Once again, when I changed it, I started to understand, wait, this problem is a lot bigger than just launching your podcast with confidence. Because when you launch your podcast with confidence, eventually that's another problem that you're facing, because you have to learn how to launch your podcast, learn how to record, learn how to publish, learn how to be consistent, learn how to hire people, and so on and so forth. Whereas if you're already doing, hold on, let me come back to the drawing board. Hold on. If you're already doing business, okay, let's say this right here is your business. Let's say business one. Let's say business one. And then I come to you with another business. Let's say business two. And you have, let's just say 1 to 3 people, team. Let's say team. How in the world can you manage 2 different businesses at the same exact time? There's no way. If you're just a 1-person team, if you have a team, a small team, there's some things that can be worked on, but some things are going to be neglected. And when I started to understand that I'm creating more work for entrepreneurs, business owners, and their leaders, I needed to change and update my business model. And so instead of a business owner, when I go to them, hold on, what just happened? Hold on. All right, we cool. Instead of me going to a business owner, asking for a business where they have to actually do more work, hold on. Okay, instead of me going to business number 1, business 1, and them creating business too. If I remove the work of creating business too and bring more exposure, help them share their story to business number one, exposure, hold on, check this out. Exposure equals more, hold on. Exposure equals the right customers. Exposure equals right customers. So when I start to really position my message differently and update my business, things start to change. And by things I'm saying, as I'm communicating with people and I'm going out to be different, the difference that I'm trying to make, people instantly feel the difference. I'm not trying to help them establish another business. I'm trying to help them gain more exposure for their current business. And when I started to understand that people understand their product so much, but they lack the exposure, I was like, oh, I got it. Now I just need to go out and get feedback on what the problem is when it comes to exposure. So what I'm talking about, I'm actually in the process of doing. So if you want different, you have to be different. But to be different, you have to become different. Because when you become different, you start to look at things differently. When you look at things differently, you become different. And this is what's going to make your business stand out, because a lot of people have a business. A lot of people are doing the same thing, just like any other businesses, yet they are not sticking out, yet they are not known, yet they are not making a difference. And my goal is to really stand out by being different, by understanding that when our customers come to us, they feel valued, seen, and heard. And that alone helps their business grow, because the right customers will be attracted to their business, to the business owner, and be willing to work with them. It's the exposure that makes a difference. And so we're helping leaders like you gain more exposure, share your story, and attract the right customers. So in closing, what we talked about was three things. And the first thing that we talked about was to learn different. Excuse me. As you are learning different, you are learning your style and what makes you stand out. We talked about the unique selling proposition. I learned that on the podcast that I did a while ago, 2 weeks ago. And essentially, what are you selling that makes you different from any other businesses out there? Second thing that we talked about was identify your different. When you learn your different, or learn your style of learning to be different, identify what makes you different. We help leaders feel valued, seen, and heard, and that alone helps the right customers be attracted to their business. And lastly, what we talked about is seek feedback. Feedback is the most critical thing in business, because if you're not seeking feedback, you are not growing. If you're not seeking feedback, you are not being different. If you're not seeking feedback, you are just like any other business out there that's not growing. Many times it's understanding that when you seek feedback, you're positioning yourself differently because you're listening to your customers. If you want different, be different. And when you be different, you are becoming different. So today, that's been this episode on the Phase Knowledge Podcast, on the importance of being different and how you can go from point A, which is understanding how to be different, to point B, which is becoming different, and actually doing it on a consistent basis, because this is how your business is going to gain exposure. This is how you're going to be able to gain exposure, share your story, and attract the right customers. Make sure you hit that follow button, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments your biggest takeaway on being different for your business. Let me know in the comments your biggest takeaway on the importance of being different for your business. I love to read it, love to engage with it. And lastly, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button. We are talking everything about business and the importance of exposure, so that way more people can learn about your business, or they can learn about your story, and more customers can be attracted towards your story and your business. So until next time, make sure you hit that follow button, and I'll see y'all next time.